やがて世界を戦乱に巻き込み、多くの犠牲を生むでしょう。
Few fighters carried the pedigree, legacy and length as the Tekken series from Bandai Namco. Sega pretty much created the genre with Virtua Fighter. Battle Area Toshinden was another hit on the PlayStation itself, along with Soul Edge and Soul Calibur, but really the longest running legacy has been Tekken, with the last real installment in the series only hitting PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 back in 2009 with Tekken 6. Not bad for a series that only started a year after Virtua Fighter in 1994. But now we are on the brink of a very long running and delayed release in Tekken 7 from Bandai Namco. Due to hit consoles in early 2017, we do have a chance to take a look at the game in its arcade form. And thanks to the help of a fellow gamer over in Australia, who generously contacted me via Twitter and was able to share direct feed footage from the arcade game, I'm able to analyse the game in more detail in terms of what it presents over the previous release, obviously the Xbox One version at E3, and certainly how it performs and what the old Tekken 6 performed like on the Xbox 360. So in some ways, we get a little retro look back at an old 2009 Tekken release. So let's kick some arse. Tekken 6 on last-gen consoles actually had a resolution scaling mode. If you turned the motion blur off, the game did have a per-object motion blur that was very accomplished. You then got a much higher resolution on the Xbox 360, something in the region of 1300 by 768, but if you turn this off, then you got a much lower resolution, approximately 1000 by 550-ish on the actual lowest resolution on the 360. The choice was welcome, and I personally preferred the motion blur mode. Whichever mode you choose though, you do get a pretty solid 60 FPS update, apart from the pre-rendered movie sequences near the beginning, which run at a 30 FPS lock with a few skips here and there. The in-game real-time cinematics do run at 60 FPS just like the game though, and whether you choose motion blur or not, it does stay consistent with its 60 FPS delivery. Meaning that refresh rate is as smooth as response rate, giving you a smooth, fast delivery in all combat and actions on both modes, which is high on the mandate in a game like this. And Tekken 7 does not look to be changing this at all, with all tested footage I've been provided with looking to run a lock solid 60 FPS at 1080p. With only one drop frame from the tested sequences thus far, it's going to be a solid showing on both consoles, I am sure. Now we can also see the improvement is not just resolution based. The leap up to 1080 is pretty drastic when we look at these old gen versions, but resolution is only part of the conversation. Now the engine does look to have a PBR implementation within, albeit a highly stylised one which fits within the anime cartoon aesthetic that Tekken always has. They are not looking for photorealism here, that simply isn't conducive to what the game is aiming for. Sadly, anti-aliasing isn't a massive step up either, looking very much like a standard post-processing solution. This leaves the image quality slightly noisy, with some of the thin object geometry in the background, leaves, trees, and obviously the high specular in certain levels can give the image some instability, and it would be nice to see a temporal anti-aliasing solution employed here, but maybe we'll get some benefits on the console versions over this vanilla arcade release. That said, it's still pretty clear that the arcade release itself is still a huge leap over the Tekken 6 last gen console releases, and in a fight there could be only one winner.
Che la luce di Sirio disperda le tenebre.
The game is now based on PC architecture rather than PlayStation 3 in the arcades. It also lacks the Octave physics engine used to handle some of the destruction and the hydrodynamic physics, although the final implementation in the water in the game was never impressive as the original engine demonstrations. But it now runs on Unreal Engine 4. And yes, that means that this is up against Street Fighter in more ways than one. Now that game on consoles did have a few issues and a few omissions, with the PC release sporting, amongst other things, motion blur, which was missing on the PS4 version, and again here in this arcade release of Tekken 7, it's also suspicious by its absence. Now Tekken 6, as I've already covered, did support a relatively high sample rate and pretty clean per object motion blur, which helps smooth out the action and enhance velocity on limbs. But from the current arcade footage, this just isn't present in the engine, so this may yet see an improvement in the initial release. And if we take a look at the Xbox One release at E3, we can see that it's currently not implemented here. And like its brethren in Street Fighter V with the engine, it may be a sacrifice for the consoles, or it could make it in, as there is still some time left in development. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Xbox One release run a 900p resolution and PS4 1080p, but both of them are targeting 60 frames per second, as we've seen here from the arcade release. There does seem to be slightly less particle effects from this Xbox One footage, but even though this was a polished demonstration, it's not like for like footage, so it's pointless to get into too much detail just yet. Aside the physics and calculations of cloth and particle effects, which were very impressive in the game, we can also see that Unreal Engine's light mask system is used effectively across the levels to create such a soft diffused light system, and obviously global illumination, be it pre-baked in the environments, but the game will most likely have a dynamic time of day and moving light sources just like the original Tekken 6 did. Like I say, the character models are of very high quality and polygon count, with animation being particularly striking and fluid. With the game's abundant destruction and cloth physics, I wouldn't be surprised to see it fully supporting the Nvidia Apex plugin, which of course is fully compatible with Unreal Engine 4 and would make the development process much easier for the team. In fact, the striking similarities between this and Street Fighter V just keep on continuing. The quality on the textures is very high up close, but some of the backgrounds do seem to suffer slightly. Also, texture filtering isn't abundantly high here for a fighting game, but Unreal Engine lighting system has improved immensely here, with the specular and diffuse on skin, clothing and floor looking particularly impressive, and the night fight from E3 was the most impressive showing yet, and was a great example of the additional post effects added to the game, with a beautiful depth of field bokeh added, which you can see clearly here as the camera moves in with that beautiful hexagon shape on the fire embers in the background. And this again is a real-time cinematic running at 60 frames per second on the Xbox One, but you can see more evidence of this heavily in the arcade footage here. And these post effects, along with very high shadow quality, no dithering as we saw in Street Fighter V, and pretty good ambient occlusion work across the whole scene, delivering a striking and beautiful package, albeit a bloody vicious one. And so long as my series favourite Huang is in there and Lee, I'll be more than happy to spend my hard-earned cash. That about wraps up this video for now. If you like this or anything else I've put together, please subscribe and support the channel. Leave a like if you did and a dislike if you didn't. Leave all your thoughts and feedback below. Be sure to check the channel regularly and the website for more information on this and all other games and hardware. I'll see you on the next one.